The movie It Ends With Us, actor and director Justin Baldoni is facing a setback in his lawsuit against Blake Lively, Ryan Reynolds, and the New York Times.
Last Friday, the New York Times filed a motion to dismiss the federal defamation lawsuit brought by actor Justin Baldoni. One looming question is whether the judge assigned might show bias due to a relative's connections. Tellingly, the Times submitted its filing late on a Friday night, often a tactic to avoid extensive media coverage. Although It Ends With Us is no longer in theaters, the off-screen turmoil surrounding it hasn't cooled. Allegations keep flying between Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni, and multi-million-dollar lawsuits pile up. Their ongoing PR war recently ensnared the New York Times.
Justin Baldoni sues the New York Times for $250 million over the outlet's Blake Lively harassment story,
which Baldoni accuses of defamation and shady dealings. In turn, Lively has doubled down on her own claims against him, while the Times is now scrambling to dodge Baldoni's massive $250 million lawsuit by claiming it just reported the facts as any newsroom would. Interestingly enough, the Times invoked certain legal protections, notably fair report privilege, which shields media outlets covering official legal documents from defamation. But here's the rub. Baldoni's camp says the Times had early access to Lively's civil complaint and seems to have worked in tandem with her, rather than neutrally covering court filings. The Times article, according to Baldoni, included selectively edited text messages, removing crucial context, such as emojis that indicated sarcasm or jokes.
The legal battle involving the co-stars of It Ends With Us now in full swing, with two explosive lawsuits filed on New Year's Eve.
And painted him as guilty from the get-go. In essence, Baldoni accuses the Times of orchestrating a media blitz that portrayed him in the worst possible light before he could respond, leaving audiences convinced he was the villain. Is he overplaying his hand with a massive lawsuit, or did he truly fall prey to Hollywood's most powerful PR arm? Depends on which version you trust. Here's some background. The Times reportedly sent Baldoni an email in December, a few days before Christmas, giving him a one-day window to respond to charges they planned to publish. Not only did this suspiciously short timeline make it nearly impossible for him to coordinate a rebuttal.
After the New York Times filed a motion to exit the director's $400 million federal defamation lawsuit that also names Blake Lively, husband Ryan Reynolds, and their publicist.
But it also arrived during the holiday lull, when lawyers are often unavailable. Soon thereafter, the Times claimed that they're being unfairly roped into a legal fight that's really between Baldoni and Lively, maintaining they merely reported on Lively's official civil rights filing. If that was really all there was to it, then why not ensure both sides had equal space to address the claims? Dismissing Baldoni's complaint, the Times labeled his lawsuit a shameless PR document, accusing him of trying to muzzle their free press rights. But to Baldoni, this is no mere publicity stunt. He alleges a calculated takedown that extends beyond one unflattering article. Lively's PR team, he says, collaborated directly with the Times, shipping them evidence that turned into a one-sided hit piece. Baldoni had the foresight to keep detailed records, and people like Candace Owens later unearthed metadata showing the Times.
The New York Times filed a motion on Friday to dismiss a federal defamation lawsuit filed by actor Justin Baldoni in response to the paper's December article about his troubles on set.
Knew about Lively's complaint 11 days before publication. That revelation raises the question of whether there was actual collusion to trash Baldoni's reputation. A particularly odd angle involves the Times supposedly removing emojis from text messages to change their tone. While that might sound minor, it can drastically shift meaning. Something as simple as a winking face can turn a menacing statement into banter. If the Times knowingly scrubbed emojis and any exculpatory context, were they really just reporting, or were they shaping a particular story? There's also speculation about how Lively's team obtained and provided private texts, or whether certain messages were subpoenaed. While the Times cites fair report privilege, Baldoni's attorneys insist that doesn't shield a publication when it knowingly edits and withholds information that might undermine the narrative it wants to push.
Justin says that Blake was determined to make him the real-life villain in her story because she wasn't doing well on the promo tour for the movie.
Instead of balanced reporting, they believe this was a collaboration with Lively's camp aimed at portraying Baldoni as a villain. The timing is another red flag. Experts like commentator Dave Neal dissected the notice email that the Times sent Baldoni, revealing that it was delivered at around 9 p.m. on December 20th, 5 days before Christmas. That left him virtually no time to respond. Plus, the Times concealed they had Lively's complaint well beforehand. If Candace Owens hadn't investigated timestamps and data, the public might never have realized the Times had been crafting this story for weeks, or even months.
He and 9 other plaintiffs, including his publicists, have brought a $250 million lawsuit against the New York Times, essentially alleging them of libel and false light invasion of privacy.
Given Baldoni poured years and significant capital into this project, it makes little sense for him to sabotage his own film's success. Meanwhile, the Times contends it was simply reporting on an official complaint, allegedly to let readers know there was serious friction on set. Yet critics countered that the Times publicized Lively's lurid accusations, like forced intimacy on set and discussions about sexual experiences, while omitting any evidence Baldoni supplied to counter them. If they were truly unbiased, wouldn't they have given him equal space to refute those allegations? Adding to the puzzle, the Los Angeles Times took a different approach. It talked to actual Wayfarer Studios employees about their experiences working under Baldoni.
Asking for the gag order and explaining how he's talking too much. He's threatening to post stuff on public sites. So what I think is this looks good for Baldoni.
Their testimonies focused on toxic positivity, describing him as overly enthusiastic, but nobody mentioned sexual or workplace misconduct. This begs a simple question. If the LA Times could interview staff, why did the New York Times apparently decline to gather those insights? Still, the LA Times coverage had its own angles. No major outlet is ever completely neutral, but at least they included perspectives from people who were there. In contrast, the Times anchored its story on Lively's lawsuit, painting Baldoni as a menacing figure. If Wayfarer employees had provided a different narrative,
trying to help her with her posture. Complainant immediately voiced her displeasure with being touched on an intimate part of her body, and Mr. Baldoni responded with, "It's fine."
Was it deliberately ignored? Baldoni and his business partner, Steve Sarowitz, were also criticized for discussing their faith openly at work. Some staffers said it felt awkward, but no one said they were forced to adopt those beliefs or face discriminatory behavior. Meanwhile, the Times focused on Lively's claims of uninvited visits to her trailer and even incidents involving her being topless. Claims Baldoni insists were patently false. He says he has text messages proving she'd given him permission to visit, which directly contradict the story the Times told. The entire conflict suggests a deeper struggle over narrative control. Baldoni claims Lively's real objective wasn't just to wrest creative power from him on set, but to blackball him in the industry afterward. She had the media clout, and possibly the Times, in her corner. Yet, it didn't all go according to plan. Baldoni says he saved every text, every email, anticipating she might play hardball. If these claims hold water in court, it could upend the Times' reputation, indicating they collaborated with a Hollywood star to destroy someone's career. Fair report privilege might not cover the deliberate removal of context or emojis to create a misleading story. And if the judge allows it to proceed, we might see depositions, internal emails, and behind-the-scenes communications that shed light on how major publications operate when celebrities with strong PR machines come calling. No wonder the Times is determined to get this case tossed. News outlets rarely face serious consequences for questionable coverage, especially if they can hide behind First Amendment protections. But Baldoni's attorneys say they have receipts showing the Times was far from neutral. Among the oddities is how swiftly they published the piece after sending Baldoni that last-minute email. Convenient timing that looks more like a plan than plain reporting. Beyond the legal arguments, some are surprised at the extent of Lively's alleged power moves. According to Baldoni, she wasn't satisfied just making creative suggestions. She pushed for directorial control, sidelined people who disagreed, and ultimately demanded her own cut of the film.
Blake Lively's It Ends With Us co-star Jenny Slate defends her amid the legal drama playing out with Justin Baldoni after Blake accuses him of trying to destroy her reputation.
While clashing visions during post-production isn't uncommon, Baldoni's side says Lively went further, stirring negative press to sabotage him, culminating in the Times piece that cast him as a predator. Instead of quietly accepting her new role, she allegedly hammered away until he was ousted. Then, she piled on a smear campaign so no one in Hollywood would want to work with him again. Yet the plan backfired when Baldoni exposed countless holes in her accusations. One example, Lively said she saw a nude video of producer Jamie Heath's wife. Baldoni revealed it was actually a harmless water birth clip. She claimed Baldoni forced a kissing scene on her. He contends she'd fought to make the scene more intimate, and the Times article, according to him, left out all the text threads that contradict her. Each time Lively or the Times pushes a new claim, Baldoni counters with receipts. Another eyebrow-raising detail is Lively's supposed concerns about filming a birth scene. She apparently wanted references for a natural childbirth sequence, which is how that clip was introduced in the first place. Yet, she later described it as an offensive invasion of privacy. If the Times discovered that context, they didn't highlight it. Not surprisingly, the Times wants to avoid a protracted legal battle. If the judge rejects their motion to dismiss, the discovery phase could be brutal. Baldoni's lawyers would gain access to internal communications that could prove whether the paper shaped the story to fit a narrative or withheld exculpatory information. Should that happen, the Times' credibility might suffer a major blow, and Lively's PR strategy could become an industry cautionary tale. Baldoni, for his part, is fighting for his professional survival. He spent years and loads of money on It Ends With Us. The last thing he'd want is a scandal that kills the film's momentum. So it's tough to see why he'd engineer the so-called smear campaign the Times implies, especially when the allegations from Lively could tank everything he poured into the project. Meanwhile, Lively faced minimal risk if the movie underperformed. She could move on to new opportunities without as much financial exposure.
Blake is saying things. I haven't seen Game of Thrones, but she compares herself to Khaleesi. I believe she has dragons. She's like, I have dragons just like Khaleesi. I have Ryan Reynolds and Taylor Swift.
For anyone watching, this entire fiasco underscores the fine line between journalism and orchestrated PR hits. If a powerhouse outlet like The Times can be used to cast someone as guilty before they have a fair chance to respond, it raises broader questions about the reliability of mainstream news in high-stakes celebrity spats. Baldoni's not alone in that skepticism. Public trust in legacy media has been eroding for years. All eyes are now on the judge. Will the court agree that the Times simply used standard reporting practices, or will it decide there's enough evidence to suggest collusion and let Baldoni's team unveil more details through discovery? The latter scenario could expose some of the biggest players in Hollywood, not to mention the behind-the-scenes workings at an influential newspaper. Lively, for her part, might have miscalculated. After systematically taking over the film's production, she could have moved on without scorching the earth. But she allegedly wanted to be sure Baldoni never worked in Hollywood again, and that meant going nuclear. If Baldoni proves the Times colluded, that plan might implode and tarnish her image as well. Hollywood players hate that kind of unpredictability. Nobody wants to risk a public fiasco of this scale. The story also highlights how small details can alter reputations. Emojis in text messages, comedic banter among PR reps, these things can be twisted into malicious wrongdoing if presented incorrectly. Once the narrative is out, it's hard to reverse. Baldoni insists that's exactly what happened. The Times published a bombshell piece at precisely the right time to cause maximum damage, refusing to present his perspective adequately. Even though it's still early in the year, the conflict has spiraled fast. If it's already this intense now, imagine what the run-up to the actual trial, assuming it happens, could bring. We might see a clash between an A-list actress, a major film producer, and one of the most venerated newspapers in the world, all locked in a courtroom drama that could redefine how celebrity lawsuits against media outlets proceed. At the heart of this fiasco is the notion that mainstream publications can shape or sink someone's reputation in a heartbeat, and whether that power's ever misused. Baldoni says it was weaponized against him. The Times insists they've done nothing more than publish public record events. The truth is, somewhere in that muddy middle.
Because if they would have won against him, a guy whose dream was to be a Hollywood actor, producer, director, they could have crushed his career.
Either way, the case is poised to be messy and might trigger further scrutiny of how powerful figures manipulate the media. It's worth noting that if Baldoni didn't have tangible proof, screenshots, emails, footage, he'd likely have been swept away by the tide of negative headlines. But he kept everything, from raw footage to text logs. So while the Times tries to exit the lawsuit, they may soon find themselves facing some difficult questions about exactly when they received Lively's complaint, which parts of the texts they left out, and why. If a judge finds reason to believe it was more than an accidental oversight, the newspaper could be in hot water. No matter how it ends, one thing is certain. The days of trusting legacy media at face value may be long gone. Viewers and readers are increasingly willing to do their own detective work, compare sources, and dig into metadata. Meanwhile, celebrities and producers can't just rely on big outlets to do their bidding without blowback. The Baldoni-Lively saga underscores that anything can become public domain in the digital age. This story's conclusion remains unclear. The Times could get the case dismissed, or Baldoni could proceed to discovery, opening a Pandora's box of emails and records. Either way, the conflict reveals how much rides on controlling the narrative in Hollywood. Entire careers can pivot on a single headline. Lively's attempt to outmaneuver Baldoni may have gone further than expected, but he's not backing down. Rather than be humiliated, he's turned the tables, forcing the Times to answer for its coverage. Now everyone's buckled in for a potentially prolonged fight. Will we witness a legal showdown that lays bare editorial processes at a world-renowned paper? Or will the Times dodge the bullet? One thing's for sure, Justin Baldoni isn't giving up, and the stakes for both the Times and Lively couldn't be higher. This battle is just getting started.